Welcome, everybody. This is Peggy's Recovery Corner. We are here today on this recovery podcast where we talk about all things recovery or lack thereof, depending on how you roll, what you use, or what you do. I have a very special guest today. He is Dave. I don't want to murder your name, but is it Gieselman?
It's Gieselman, yeah.
Gieselman, okay. Welcome to the corner. Nice to have you here today. I don't know Dave personally, although I've heard great things from my friend Athena. They met in some recovery circles, and she told me he would just be a fabulous, amazing individual to have on the recovery podcast today. So I thought I would have you here. Usually the way it works is we delve into your past. We kind of find out where you're from, where you were born, how you were raised, what you got into, and then how you got into recovery. So who is Dave? Tell me more about yourself, please.
Let's see. Okay, so born and raised Pasadena area, and as I speak often about, I was a suburban white kid in a suburban white family in a suburban white neighborhood and doing suburban white shit. Like I was like never once in my life at all have I been hard, tough, cool. Like I've never been slick. I've never been like that. That is not my story.
Right.
And I was, and I come from like a basic, kind of loving family. My parents were both professionals, and there were 4 kids, and we had a dog and a cat, and like that was like kind of my upbringing. And I was my job was to like grow up and go to school and then go to college and become some kind of professional something or other. That was the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And
any siblings?
I'm second of 4. I have 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay. And so Pasadena was the lifestyle was cool back then. How old are you?
I'm 47. So so I grew up in the 80s and 90s.
Sure.
And actually just east of Pasadena in Sierra Madre, which is a cool little town. And it was a great place to grow up. It was very vanilla. It was very, there was no spiciness to it at all. Like I went to public schools and 1 year in like 7th grade or 6th grade, I got my ass kicked real bad one time. And so my mom tried putting me in a private school,
Right.
and I went from like Pasadena public schools to this tiny little private school where suddenly I was like the public school kid, right? Right. And how those public school kids are, particularly Pasadena public school kids. They just assume cut you, look at you, and I did not thrive in that environment. I did not. I was invited not to return at the end of that, and so I got into cooking very, very young and extremely young.
How'd you get into cooking? Why?
Both my parents are great cooks. Both my parents are great cooks, and they both cooked to put themselves through their respective education. They both cooked professionally to put themselves through their respective educations. My mom had a small catering business when I was young. That's how she put herself through her education. She's a shrink now. But that was how she paid for her education. And so I had an interest and I was really interested in what was going on in there. The everything smelled good and it was cool. And so at like 11, I was helping my mom and I was, getting paid to cook. And so that was always kind of my thing. And in high school, I got my first job in a kitchen.
So it's interesting because both of my parents, I'm Persian, both of my parents loved cooking. They were really excellent cooks. But the thing was, I never had any interest to learn how to cook. I didn't learn how to cook until I was at least 6 years sober. I'm almost 15 years sober now, but they used to just make the food and I did the type of drugs where I could enjoy their food a lot better. Smoke weed and things like that. But that's cool that you were helping out mom and all that. So as far as like your upbringing and growing up, like, what was it that got you? Did you start to experiment at a young age with alcohol, with any drugs? What was the story?
Well, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I never felt like I fit in. Alcoholism in my family is like the wonderful thing about Tiggers. I'm the only one. Like none of them have it. right?
Okay.
They don't have it. Genetically, I won the lottery. I got the genetic predisposition toward toward alcoholism, and at some point that gene went live on me. So that's that was. But no, I was in adult environments. I was in adult environments, and I got introduced to adult things, and I liked cooking because it put me in adult environments. I was doing something other than what my peers were doing. I was working. I got introduced to, because I was working with a lot of Latinos, and so I got introduced to what Latinos like to do after work. I got introduced to Latino sisters. I got introduced to who just thought that I was cool, and so I got introduced to introduced to adult things as a child, and my first drinks. I was 15 years old, and I had a broken heart, and my girlfriend that I had planned this whole life out, because my parents were high school sweethearts, and they got married, and they stayed together until my father passed a couple of years ago, and that was the model that I was given, right? And when I couldn't, and so you're supposed to meet your girl in high school, and then do a couple of years of college, and then get married, and then do the thing, and so that was the model that I was given. My girl in high school broke my heart, and I didn't know what to do, and I found that in those first, like, really intentional drinks, those ones that were really intended, that had a purpose. Like the alcohol was there to serve a purpose. It was a tool. It was super effective. And I was amazed before I was halfway through, right? Like, I suddenly knew a new freedom and a new happiness.
Sure.
Right. I didn't regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. I could comprehend the word serenity, and I knew peace when it was working. Somewhere between 3 and 5 drinks, I lost interest in selfish things and gained interest in my fellows, right? I'm going to buy around for these guys over here. I'm going to go get in a fight with those guys over there, right? Fear of people and economic insecurity left, right? And I intuitively knew how to handle situations that 20 minutes ago baffled me. That was my experience in those first drinks, and that, like, my problem in that moment had been solved.
Was it beer? Was it hard liquor? What was it?
Oh my God. It was beer. It was a keg. It was a keg in somebody's driveway. And then
keggers, man. Line them up at the keg.
Yeah. And I just kept going back and going back and going back. And I'm like, this is like so there's an inexhaustible supply of beer. And then I found whiskey and whiskey just, but let me go back. Let me just say this. I had been addressing that sense in me my entire life, right? That sense that things weren't quite right, that I didn't fit, that I wasn't comfortable. When I was very young, I realized that food solved the problem briefly. I realized that sugar solved the problem briefly. I realized that tobacco, caffeine, video games, porn, masturbation, all of these things, like, solve that problem. The problem is it was short-lived. The solution was short-lived.
Temporarily.
Yeah. But they did it, right? But it worked. Alcohol just was the most efficient, most effective, and longest lasting solution that I'd ever encountered. I had encountered lots of solutions prior.
Sure.
Right. And so, and even the coolness of being the high school kid with a job. I had money, right? I had like I had money in my hands. I could go do shit, right? And so even that temporarily solved the problem. A little external validation solved the problem, And so then it was beer, and then it was, I graduated to, like I said, I talked to a lot of people in recovery, and I sponsor. I work with a lot of people at a real high volume, and I always ask the same question. So, like, what's your thing, right? What's your favorite flavor?
Right.
And I love the guys who are like, I was a garbage can, man. I did whatever, and I'm like, okay, but you weren't, though, right? But you weren't, right? Like, I was happy, right, to do any drugs that were in your pocket, 100%. Right?
Okay.
But when it was my money and I wasn't sharing, my money bought Jack Daniels. Like that, my money bought whiskey. And that's what I want to know when I work with other people. When it's your money and you're not sharing, like when you don't have to worry about sharing,
Then what do you do?
what did your money buy?
What
What were
did
you
you
putting in? What was your first thing? And
Mhm.
that's when we get into, were you an up, were you a down, were you an out, or were you an in? Right. And that was because I need to understand when I'm working with other people in recovery, I need to
Mhm.
know what direction you were traveling.
Right. Right.
We were joking before this is out, alcoholics and cocaine addicts, did all their stuff because they wanted to be in. I want to be in the party. I want to fit in. I want to do what the cool kids are doing. I want to be a part of. And,
Mhm.
like heroin addicts and speed freaks and all those guys, they want out. They want no part of it. I want to be left alone. And I totally get that.
Like isolators. Did you ever get into stimulants or opiates or anything like that? You said you did some drugs.
Oh, cocaine. Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, cocaine and alcohol kind of go hand in hand.
Cocaine and alcohol go hand in hand,
Right.
and I got introduced to cocaine in kitchens, when
Right.
it starts getting really, really busy, there is always a dishwasher or a prep cook or something who's got a bindle in his pocket. Always,
Sure.
always, 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 always. There's
Mhm.
always a guy. Like restaurant owners and who aren't familiar with like the culture of getting loaded, right? Who aren't
Mhm.
familiar with the culture of addiction, like
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of them and they were appalled. I'm like, if we went into your kitchen right now and we told everybody to turn out their pockets, there would be booze, there would be needles, there would be powders, there would be like, you would be shocked. And I talk to guys all the time and I go, no, there are people like if you tested everybody right now, not what they've done, but are they currently lit in this moment?
That means every time we go to restaurants and we're eating, the food that's been prepared for us perhaps possibly has gone through the hands of the people that are on all kinds of barbiturates, all kinds of narcotics, all kinds of alcohol, all kinds
Kinds of
of
stuff.
drugs.
All kinds of stuff.
Everyone's loaded that's making our food.
Right? No, that's just the way it works. And some kitchens are cool and some kitchens are like, look, I don't want to see what you're doing, but do whatever you got to do to get through a shift.
Sure.
Right?
Out of
Others
sight,
are
out of mind. Yeah.
others are real strict about it. But the if you followed Anthony Bourdain or anything else, I loved Tony Bourdain because I read his Washington Post article and then I read his book Kitchen Confidential, and I thought he was peeking through my windows, right? Because I was that guy. I was the constantly drunk cook. There were two things about me you could take to the bank, right?
Sure.
I had knives that could cut through a train. Like my knives were always sharp.
Sure.
And I was always drunk. I always there was no point where you would find me that I didn't have razor sharp knives in my bag and I wasn't drunk.
Do you think some of the stuff that you were cooking up came out better because of being intoxicated? Like some people drive better, they say, when they've been drinking.
Right. No, it was never about other people's experience.
Sure.
I was more comfortable I didn't consider another human being in other than as a transactional situation until well into sobriety. Like the idea that other people needed to be taken into consideration. Look, I'm just trying to get mine. I'm trying to get through the shift. I'm trying to get paid because as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to go get some more booze and dope. That's what I'm doing. And that's the only purpose that I have. Everything is transactional and none of it's about you. Right? It was all about me and my level of comfort. And that's how I lived.
Now, when you finished high school, did you finish on time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
did you end up going to college, university, culinary school? What did you just go straight into the field of being a chef?
Yeah, no, I was working in kitchens. I went to community college, right? I went to Pasadena Community College.
Yeah.
I have one of the rare distinctions. I had I believe 3 academic dismissals from Pasadena City College. I was dismissed from PCT. They're like no, you cannot sign up for a bunch of classes, show up for the first week, piss drunk, and then never sign up again. That was, but I think
I think usually when people are in a college setting and they've been put on academic probation a couple of times, like myself, I went to the art institute. I was an
Oh,
artist
right.
that was failing out of art school because I was fucked up. But I think it's a great indicator when somebody's put on academic probation that perhaps they're not in the right mind. Something's not right here. Like they made it all the way to college, but they're not able to perform in class or even make it to class for that matter, or they make it late, or it depends. But so you were kicked out of school, fair to say?
Yeah. I left PCC, and I didn't go into culinary school until I was sober. So then it was just working and working, and I couldn't manage my own life. Like
Hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to save enough money to pay rent. I couldn't figure out how to not drink my entire paycheck the moment I got it. I couldn't figure out how to like keep an apartment. I couldn't figure out how to manage all of that stuff. And I went, the last 2 years of my drinking, I was on the couch tour for a while, and the couch tour is only cute for a minute. Your buddies are happy to help you, until the day, this guy woke up in the middle of the night to take a piss and found me in his bathroom drinking all of his scope,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Because I'm just trying to fix my problem,
sure.
right? Like I'm just trying to fix my problem, and this guy was like, look, I don't know what that is, but you need to leave. You need to go. This is not, I can't. I'm like, no problem. I'll leave in the morning. And he's like, no, you need to leave now. You need to leave now. And what I know is you're my friend and I love you. And me providing a place for you to do that is not love. Like I
Sure.
have no context for that behavior. And all I know is me giving you a place to do that is not me showing a friend love.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
and so even in my drinking and using, I had like amazing, like super healthy humans in my life who were like, oh no, I will not co-sign that. I will not enable that. Goodbye. No, you need to leave now. So I lived in my truck for a while, and then my truck got towed away, and then I was on the streets for a while, and I found a girl that I could live with, and it was just all of that. Like it was all like manipulation and whatever. And yeah, my last little bit, I was on the streets for about the last 9 months.
Somebody asked, they said drinking all of his what? I heard drinking all of his soap. No, he said scope, as in like mouthwash because it has alcohol in it. Correct?
Right, right. And so yeah, and that was my like go-to. That was my go-to. Uh, that's my camera flicking off. It's going to do it for 2 seconds every 30 minutes because nothing plays nicely with the Mac M1 chips yet. So
That's
I
okay.
have a great camera that flickers. But no, so my go-to after 2 in the morning when they weren't selling alcohol anymore was Aqua Velva, Cool Mint Listerine, and vanilla extract because I know these things have booze in them. I
Alcohol
know
in them.
all these things have alcohol in them,
I've
and
known of
so
alcohol. I've known of alcoholics to drink vanilla extract, rubbing alcohol,
rubbing
mouthwash,
alcohol will kill you.
hand sanitizer. I mean, if they can't get their hands on the actual alcohol, they will even resort to drinking those things because they can still catch a buzz and still get drunk.
Right.
Okay, so you weren't married or no kids or anything like or family during this time. You were basically between places trying to.
Between places and between jobs constantly.
Okay, then how old were you when you decided this is a problem? I need to get help.
Oh, well into sobriety. I was
No, no.
24.
Well,
Uh,
well, that's when you decided to get sober at 24.
yeah, I got sober. I got sober at 24,
What
and
was your crisis? Like, what made you decide I got to get sober?
there was no crisis. There was
No crisis.
no turning point. There was no, and this is why I am very loudly. Uh, uh, I get it. I get pretty intense about this idea that you have to find bottom. My last day drinking was not the shittiest day of my life. It was just
Mhm.
another long string of shitty days. My last day drinking, I had been came out from behind a dumpster. I was drinking in a dumpster, right? I was moving bottles from one side of a dumpster to the other. It was a dumpster behind a bar, and I was getting sheeted on the empties in a dumpster from a busy bar. It's about
Right.
11 in the morning. The tail end of July is July 25th, 1999 in Pasadena. It's hotter than hell. I'm
Right.
inside a metal dumpster. I am drinking the last bit of empties, and I walk past some stairs, and there's some guys smoking cigarettes, and I go, and I ask them for a cigarette, and they're like, "Yeah, sure." And they gave me a couple of cigarettes, and they go, "Hey, man, do you want to come in here? We got like free donuts and coffee and AC, and you can sit down for a moment, get out of the sun." These guys saw me coming.
I see where this is going. I see where this is going.
Right. And I go, well, what do you got? What do you got going on in there? Right. And they go, it's a 12-step. It's a 12-step meeting. And I'm like, that's cool. What is that? You know, what is that? Is it, you know, the church? Is it, you know, what? Like, I didn't know anything about it. Right. I'm like, so what is that? And they go, yeah, but don't even worry about it. We got free shit. You know, do you like donuts? Right. And then so I went in. It was one of these clubhouses that just houses 12-step meetings, you know, day and night, like round the clock. There was just a million 12-step meetings in there. And I went in and you know, they had a big table full of coffee and donuts and, you know, cookies and different stuff. And I set down everything I owned and walked over. And what was interesting about that moment was what happened. Because I walked over, right? And I, you know, grabbed one of the little cheap paper plates, and I began loading up just like a homeless guy, like, you know, drunk and homeless. I'm lit. I'm completely drunk. It's 11 in the morning on a Sunday, and I'm hot. I'm stinky, and I go in there and I do what we do, right? I start loading up cookies and donuts, and I grab a coffee and a little styrofoam cup, and I'm trying to manage all of this. And what happened was that absolutely nobody in that room said, "Hey, can we get the homeless guy away from the donuts, please?" Nobody said that. I was on my way back to my seat, and this one old buzzard with a blue book on his knee looked up at me, and he goes, "You know we have cake. Did you see we have cake?" I'm like, "Cake? We have, you know?" And you guys, they were kind to me. They were kind. They were gentle. They were very, very loving. And in that moment, I realized in that first meeting, if I raised my hand and said, "My name's Dave, and I have a problem," then it was all the coffee, cigarettes, and donuts that I could eat. Right. And that was the moment I became a guy with a problem, right? Like that was the moment. That was the moment it happened. I am now a homeless guy with a hustle trying to figure out how to walk and talk like a duck real quick. That's it. I don't know what this ism is that you guys are talking about. I don't know about your solution. I don't know about your book. I don't know about any of that. What I do know, my biggest fear is that you guys were going to figure out that I wasn't an addict. I didn't have a problem and throw me out. That you guys were going to figure out that I wasn't one of them and throw me out. And so I just, like, whatever you guys do, whatever you guys say, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm going to say. And so I just start parroting a bunch of weird shit. I just start saying a bunch of stuff. And I actually detoxed in that room. You know, there was I went through. And so if you have, for your audience, I want to be very, very clear. If you have never experienced acute unsupervised alcoholic detox, unsupervised unmedicated alcoholic detox in the back of a meeting clubhouse, I highly recommend it. There is nothing that will give you an appreciation for the life that you currently have quite like it. I was miserable, and I went through detox in a very, very painful, very isolated way. I had no answers for why my body was doing what it was doing, and all I knew was just to be here. And what I look back on that time, and I look at the kindness of these people, and they had this great big basket full of those Hostess fruit pies. Remember those Hostess fruit pies? Disgusting, right? The sugar and
disgustingly good.
right. And so they had this big basket full of these things that one of the guys kept full from the food bank. And I was eating those things hand over fist. I was eating all the cookies that I could get. I was sitting in like 6-8 meetings a day, and I was eating these fruit pies hand over fist. And what I didn't realize See, I thought I was just getting over on these guys. I thought I was just, like one more time, just running my hustle, right?
Mhm.
I thought I was getting over on these guys. And they watched me just eating these things hand over fist, stealing them and everything. And it was the sugar and the fat that was in those things that was keeping me alive, keeping me from going into cardiac arrhythmia and cardiac arrest.
Wow.
Okay, so in various places they tell you they used to pour like Caro syrup, like they used to give people sugar and Caro syrup. It's because alcohol, 3 steps into the metabolic process, is indistinguishable from sugar, right? And so they used to tell people give people Caro syrup, corn syrup, whatever, and it'll help with the DTs. Because like a true alcoholic detox will stop your heart. Heroin, you bounce off the walls for a few days, scratch your skin off. It's miserable, but it doesn't kill you. Alcoholic detox will kill you. It'll kill you dead. Your heart will seize and you will die.
That's right. You can seize up and die for sure.
And it was the.
So you didn't go to a traditional detox center. You did this all on your own.
I didn't even go to a hospital. No, I went to a meeting room because they had donuts. It was every single time there was a meeting, there was more donuts, there was more coffee, there was more guys that could bum a cigarette off of. That's it. Like
my man detoxed through delicatessens.
Yeah. Right. And so, but they realized, and what they knew, it was the sugar and fat and those things keeping me alive. They knew it. I didn't. And they gave me the dignity of not sharing that information with me. They allowed me my own dignity, right? They just let me get over on them. Like they didn't need to say, yeah, keep doing that or whatever, or hey, we know what you're doing. Nothing. They just allowed like a completely broken human to have his own dignity. And because they knew that what I was doing was saving my life. Like it was physically saving my life. And they just allowed me to do it.
Now, through that process, there's some people that will attempt to get sober. They don't even know that they're in the process of getting sober, but then they'll go back out because they don't know how to see this way of life. They've never had the concept of real sobriety as an option, or maybe there were countless vain attempts and they've attempted on their own terms and their own way to stop, but then they can't stay stopped because they've lost the power of. Why did you, in this era, in this time, what made you take it so serious? Why did you stay sober?
Because I didn't want to get thrown out. Like I didn't know that, I didn't get it. Because I wasn't introduced the way most people are introduced. I was introduced through donuts, right? I was introduced through donuts, right? And so I didn't know. As a matter of fact, I'd been sober a couple of weeks, and somebody came. We were talking. They had a room to the side of the meeting room. It had a couple pool tables and TVs and a couple couches in it. And I was talking to one of the guys between meetings. He goes, "Yeah, I got drunk." I'm like, "Don't." I'm like, "You can't say that in here. They'll throw you out." He goes, "No, that's not how it works. Like that's not what they do here." Like I didn't know. I thought you guys were all serious about being sober. Like I thought that's what the thing was. And I sat through a million meetings, and I heard them talk, and I heard them speak, and I heard like the fiery speeches. Those guys who get super fiery and and intense. And so I thought they all meant it. I thought you guys were doing what you said you were going to do. What I didn't know was you guys were a bunch of fucking liars, right? I didn't know because you guys said this great stuff and fired me up, and I thought I was a part of a thing, and I thought we all did this. If I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do what you guys, and you talked about your book, and you talked about the stairs, and you talked about all the things that you talk about, right? And you talk about this, and I didn't understand any of it. All I knew was I wanted to be what you guys were. I wanted to do what you did. I wanted to have what you had, because what you had was like you guys were laughing. You were happy. Some of you had money in your pocket. You guys had shoes and I didn't. People who saw me come in to this day still call me Bam Bam 24 years later because I was very short, very angry, and didn't wear any fucking shoes. Like... right, like so people will see me, and I'll walk into to this day I'll walk into a meeting room, and I'll hear out of the far side of the room, "What's up, Bam Bam?" And I'll turn around, and somebody who was in the room that day is sitting
Hmm.
over there. You know, one of the people who's just kind to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I wanted was to be what you guys. So I didn't know that not doing the steps was a thing. I didn't know that not, you know. And so I found a sponsor thing, and I don't know what a sponsor thing is, right? And the whole thing sounds weird, right? Because I wasn't trying to ask a dude to go steady with me. I don't know what this whole thing is. And somebody's like, you know, find a guy who's got the life that you want, and tell him he's your sponsor. I'm like, oh, okay, like I can do that. So the guy with full sleeve tattoos, Harley Davidson, great big truck, house in Sierra Madre. I'll take that. So whatever it is you do, that's what I do. And he's like, are you sure? Yeah. I don't, you know, why not? Well, this is how this thing works, right? And so he sat down, he pulled out, you know, two of the pieces of literature, right? Pulled out 2 books, and we began the process of working the steps. And I had worked all 12 steps of 12-step recovery and began sponsoring other people in about 5 weeks. Right? So in 5 weeks from that first day, like I'm taking on sponsors. I'm now working with other alcoholics. And not everybody in the room had an opinion about that, right? You know, and I'm just pointing out where it says in the literature that this is what we do. And I, to this day, the literature is very important to me because I just do what the literature says. The guy who took me through the process put very little of him into me. You know, like everything that I did because he had his finger on the words in the book. And there was no opinions. It was his experience and what it says. And I'm really big, you know, in this fellowship on what it says. Right. And it told me that I was going to have some experiences. And as I moved through the process, I had those experiences. Then it told me I was going to have some other experiences. And as I moved through the process, I had those experiences. You know,
I love it.
Everything you guys told me was true turned out to be true.
You'd mentioned earlier, as far as being in the book, obviously this book saves many, many lives, and it's done so in less than a century, millions. You'd mentioned about, you know, a lot of people say the first 164. Why'd you say to 180?
181 is 181. It's the end of the first story. My home group, we read the literature, right? And we read it from the front cover to 181. And the reason we do that is it's the first story is the co-founder's story.
Yes.
And
I had a feeling.
It informs people who want to get caught up, because all these 12-step fellowships tend to name a substance, right? And people, we get caught up in the names of substances. Well, I did this, so I'm not one of those, or I did that, so I'm a this and I'm not a that.
Yeah.
Right. And we identify ourselves right out. And one of, you know, the story of one of the co-founders is in the front, and the story of the other co-founders in the back. And it's the first story. And these 2 stories, you know, they both talk about drugs. They both talk about, you know, severe, you know, alcohol use and severe drug use.
Yes.
Right.
Sedatives.
Sedatives, all kinds of
high-powered.
Yeah, high-powered sedatives, right?
Yes.
So these guys weren't, you know, messing around, and I am sure that they were talking about opiates. I'm sure they were talking about all kinds of stuff. There's been lots of history done on the sort of the origin stories of both of these guys, and psychedelics were involved in, and all kinds of stuff, right?
Sure.
And so when we read this, when we read the literature, we read it to this point just to include like the experience of the founders. And it was funny, there was an interview with the founders, and they asked them, so how does this whole thing boil down, right? What's the deal, right? Like if we were to distill this system right? Because what 12 steps does, right? And what 12 steps does, just for those who are unfamiliar, new or relatively new, I
Mhm.
want to be clear. What 12 steps does it is a replicable process of having a mystical experience, a spiritual experience. It is, and if you do the process in the way it's laid out, these guys figured out how to codify and methodize a mystical experience, a spiritual experience. And I'm really in my own work today. I'm big into flow. I'm big into peak performance. I'm big into neurobiology and hacking. Not hacking, but understanding how the brain works and how the mechanism of the mystical, the spiritual experience happens in the brain.
Yeah.
And not to,
Powerful, powerful.
yeah, not to separate God, not to separate spirituality from it, but to marry it, right? To really to show that there are structures in the brain that their entire job is keeping track of mystical experiences, of spiritual experiences, and that's their entire
At,
purpose. And
at
there
the
are
end of,
ways set up
Mhm.
triggering a spiritual experience, and these guys figured that out,
I
right?
Wow, this is so powerful. At the end of the day, mysticism or our mystic abilities all stems from God, regardless. And when
No,
it comes down to science and chemistry and all that, where does it all stem from? To God. I mean,
yeah,
depending on who you are and how you roll and what you believe in, I've been introduced to so many different denominations of religiosity and religious beliefs, and grew up in Utah, came out here to California. Everything from Mormonism to Judaism to Islam to all of that. And who would have thought that I'd go into a certain type of a 12-step program that's trying to save people from alcoholism or addiction for that matter, and plug into something greater than myself as a result of a book that wasn't like all of the other books that had been introduced. Not to discount any of those books. They work for whoever studies them or professes them or whatever. But for me, I know what book you're talking about. It is the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It saved my life, changed my life, and truly. And I also, it's funny you talk about all this stuff because my friend moved out to Ohio for a while, and we went to Dr. Bob's house, and we were given a tour by a lady who Gail. She does the artifacts. She oversees the artifacts and everything. As we're walking through the house, she was showing us the books that our founders, Bill and Bob, for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, were actually reading and studying out of to be able to put together the book AA, because they knew that so many different types of people from probably on a national level, they thought at that time would be coming from different backgrounds, that varieties of religious experiences by William, James.
mm-hmm.
They were studying books like this to be able to have more of a vast open mind to be able to pertain and help people that are going to come with either with a non-belief system or a past belief system or something that they decided they didn't want to have anything to do with, and to let them have their own experience, to tap into that mystical side of them, right? Like definitely
Right.
the mysticism. So I love
And
that. That's so
that's
powerful.
exactly it. And William James is actually kind of the godfather of the neurobiological study
Right.
of mysticism, of flow, and of transient hypofrontality and all this. It all stems from like William James and Jung and Maslow and all
Young.
those guys.
Yep. Now,
So
so you talked about what you do now. Like you got sober. You
yep.
said you went to culinary school.
Yeah,
You
so I got
to be a
sober.
chef.
I got sober in my first year of sobriety. I met the woman. I met a girl, right? And so
Mhm.
she had 13 years of sobriety. I was
Mhm.
coming up on a year, and
Woo!
right, and we all know we have a term for that, and it was all good. And she thought I was cute, and I was not in a position to argue. And so, in her defense, she had no intention of marrying me, but she did. She had no intention of giving me a beautiful son, but she did.
Mhm.
And we parted. Our marriage was dissolved in 2017 under very, very loving circumstances. She remained sober. She's better than 30 years sober. pushing 40 now,
Uh-huh.
40 years sober now. We are still very good friends. We still operate well together. We still speak in the same, in some of the same rooms. And for a while, we kind of enjoyed the reputation of being a 12-step power couple, and it was a lot of fun. And when it was time for our relationship to end, it ended in a very loving way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I got involved with her. I went to culinary school. From there, my career super took off, and I was able to, and I worked in some really neat places with some really neat people. I've cooked for presidents, and I've cooked for celebrities, and I've cooked for big important functions that were very important to me. And once and then at some point, and all of this time, like, I'm sponsoring at a super high level. I've taken better than 350 individuals through the process of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Men, women, you know,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If you want help and you reach out to me, I'm doing it. And so sponsoring at a super high volume, because that was the only way I knew how to keep myself alive, and then I moved through a like an amazing culinary career.
Love it. Now, what are you doing now?
So now in 2017, it was time for me to. There was a bunch of factors. In play. I was no longer being fed by cooking. It was not. So I want to say this and make sure I'm very clear about it. The things that feed you now, and the things that regardless of where you are in your life, the things that feed you now are not guaranteed to be the things that feed you later.
Sure.
You're allowed to grow as a human. Okay. You're allowed to grow. The woman that I married, right, I was in a 20-year relationship with, neither one of us were the same person 20 years later. And we wanted different things. We were moving in different directions. And we're like, oh, so we're not required to be the same person, not required to stick to the same decisions that we made 20 years ago. We can actually move forward. So yeah, it's like 30 years in a culinary career. And I'm like, I don't think this is where I want to be anymore. And what I realized that serving other humans through high volume sponsorship, through like working with everything from like stadium selling out rock stars, Academy Award winning actors, people fresh out of San Quentin, people fresh out of homeless shelters, people, like from all walks of life, lawyers and doctors and commercial airline pilots, if that's not the scariest thing you've ever heard of. But like working with tons and tons and tons of people, I realized that this was my calling, and I found myself in service, and I found myself wanting to have one-on-one engagement, one-on-one interaction with people. And what I found was the principles that I was practicing and the things that I was doing in the world of recovery worked very, very well outside those rooms. Look, you take any random human being and you add some spiritual discipline, like you take any random human being and you add meditation, prayer, and a journaling practice to their life. Like, that's all you do. You do nothing else, but you add daily meditation, daily prayer. And I don't care what you're praying to. The direction is to pray, not to believe. If you pray every day, you meditate every day, and you journal every day, your life will take off, period. It doesn't matter. If you install these things in your life will improve.
Absolutely.
And so I just began working with other people. I began as a coach. And I swore that I was a men's coach because that was what I wanted to work with. That was the population that I wanted to work with. And so I even introduced myself. I got introduced to the world in 2017 as a coach on a very, very big stage with a very, very highly respected person in personal development, and introduced me as a men's coach. And I stood on this guy's stage in front of 1,500 people. I'm like, I'm a men's coach. This is what I do. This is how I operate. And I help people like solve the problems in their life. I help them break down the challenges they have and apply certain tools to it, tools of clarity, tools of understanding how to do it, tools that affect your central nervous system. Like when you're in a stressful state, you cannot think your way out of the problem. So we're going to shift your nervous state so that you have access to higher brain function. And what happened is, as my business grew and I left professional kitchens in 2017, uh, a direct result of that caused my marriage to end. Like my ex-wife, she's like, no, I signed up to be a chef's wife, not Tony Robbins' wife. That this is the life, the path you are going down is not the one I want. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so we just parted ways. Right, cool, no problem. And so I went down this path, and I have found myself now in every single way that was important to me back then, serving other human beings today. Only we've removed the need for you to be like dying of alcoholism or dying of addiction or whatever. And what's driving people toward my services in particular is, look, I just want a better life. I want to feel better. And it's all these. And you asked about it earlier. Like, what was the moment? Like, what was the inflection point? Right. And so we talk about inflection points, and an inflection point can mean your bottom. Right. And by the way, your bottom only exists in past tense. Like, you look back, like there's no situation in front of you that is bad enough that is going to change your direction, is going to, like, nobody goes, oh, that was terrible, it's time for me to clean up. What happens is we look back and we go, oh, that was where my direction changed. Right. But if you believe, if you're one of these people that struggles with continuous relapse or continuous, having these hard attempts, and you go, well, maybe it just hasn't gotten bad enough. I promise that a situation, a circumstance that is bad enough for you to change is not in front of you. You will find it if you look behind you, but it is not in front of you. We bury people who go looking for bottom. We bury people who are still in search of that rock bottom that they think is going to change their mind about stuff.
Love it. Couldn't agree with you more.
And so we get to deal with now inflection points, because with 24 years of sobriety, I don't struggle with staying sober anymore. Like, that's not my challenge, right? My challenge is how to be of service in the world. My challenge is how to, have a happy marriage, how to raise an 18-year-old, what my role of a father is as the world changes, as my son changes, as he grows. And my kid is amazing. He's looking at colleges right now. He's got no time for dad, right? And getting to deal with my own feelings around that, right? Because I still want to be like the most important person in my son's life, and I'm just not. His friends are, his future is, his girlfriend is, like, all of these, his mechanic keeping his car, like those are the people who are important to him. And that's just fine. So now I work with people who are at inflection points, and either I've been doing this job for so long and I don't think I'm happy anymore, or I've been married for so long and I don't think I'm happy anymore, or I'm not sure what my next step is, and I just don't feel like I'm as engaged, I'm as enthusiastic about this thing as I used to be, and I'm afraid, and I'm not sure what that next step is. And so I walk people through next steps.
Love this. It's just such a fresh breath of air to be able to hear this type of talk. I mean, I think life is meaningless unless we learn to become of service to people, and it doesn't have to just be in a 12-step sense.
Right.
The greatest spiritual beings that have been or are no longer here but are known for being great human beings were the ones that gave of themselves and did things with no intention, helped, because they wanted to help, not because for any other reason, for fun and for free, if you will, right? I really enjoy. It's interesting, like when I look at my life when I was 16 years old, somehow my parents sent me somewhere when I was 16, and it was called Summit. It was down in Orange County. It was basically one of these self-help groups. It was like 3 days you went there, and there was a lot of different people from all walks of life, mostly people that were older and had done well for themselves, or they were in a workplace and they were unsure of why they were, or where they were going in life, right? So we went there.
Some offshoot of Landmark or something, right?
It was like Landmark. I went to Landmark too in my sobriety, which reminded me a lot of that. I mean, obviously we get all of that stuff, not in 3As, but we get it definitely in a process of being in a 12-step world. However, I love that you are now giving to so many people. I can only imagine, I understand like it didn't work out in your marriage, and she thought, you're basically a motivational speaker that's not giving enough attention to her, and that she's more used to you just going to your chef job. But I admire what you're doing. I love that Athena introduced us. There's oftentimes that I'll meet somebody and I will vibe with them so well that I think this person needs to be my friend. Like that's all there is to it. Before I ever knew who Dave Wiss was, I saw him somewhere. I judged him by his appearance. I had no idea who he was. And then he went up and he was our speaker that night. And this man just threw it down so fucking hard and so like heartfelt and so with so much passion and vigor. And I thought, that guy needs to be my friend. I misjudged. I told him later too. I go, I totally misjudged you. You're a good man. I'd like to be your friend. We've been friends ever since. And like, I am appreciative of you coming on here today and speaking with such transparency and talking about yourself and just the fact that you do what you do with no intention but to do it and help people. What an honor and a privilege to have you on Pesci's Recovery Corner today. I'm going to close it down now. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off? And I want to stay in touch with you. You're a good man, I can tell.
Absolutely. More than anything, regardless of where you're seeking recovery, please know that no one group has like the market cornered. Like nobody, like AA, CA, NA, even like rational recovery, right? Like everything is about where you find safety and a sense of self and a sense of connection. That's where it is. Like I want to make sure that I'm saying that I don't think anybody's wrong. I don't think anybody's wrong. I don't think any approach is wrong. I think the one that works for you is the one that works for you. Be open to spiritual experiences, mystical experiences. I grew up in a Baptist family, and 11, me and God were done with each other. Like I was going to burn in hell and he could fuck right off. And me and I had to go on my own journey with that. And now I have my own beliefs. But like what you were given is not what you need to hang on to, and find what like really vibes with you. Find what really fires you up and go diving into it. My favorite conversation in all of sobriety is the third step conversation. You and I should definitely have it sometime. I think it'd be a great.
I'm so down. I'm so down.
Podcast episode is the third step conversation. It's my favorite in all of sobriety. But yeah, whatever you're doing, seek people who light you up, who like you can't explain why, but you're like, yes, that like resonates with me at a very, very deep level, and just follow them.
Absolutely. So good. So good. Athena just put a bunch of flames right here. Let me just show you this. And then my friend Matt said, totally rad, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate you coming out today to the corner. A friendship must grow. And that's what I'm going to work towards. I'm going to call you soon about some other stuff that we got going on too. And I want to learn more about what you're doing. Thank you for being on today, and thanks for who you are.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Have a good rest of the day, and thanks to all those who tuned in. Much love. Bye.